Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
What is up? We are Therapy Dudes. Dan Fox, Andre Karkamaz coming at you on a Tuesday.
On a
We do
Tuesday.
this a week before you get to hear it broadcast. It comes out on Tuesday, April 29th. We're here on Tuesday, April 22nd. That's
Oh,
the behind the scenes logistics.
oh, that's what you do. Okay. I wondered what you were doing.
Yeah, we're a week ahead so that, if you need to change the time for any reason for our podcast recording, we can do that without, having it glitch out. We do Tuesday and Fridays when we post our sessions
All
each day.
right. Okay, cool.
Um, Special thanks to our sponsor, Boulder Psychological Services. Check out their website for all your therapy needs. Andre, very excited today. I wanted to share with you a thought I was having in our final week discussing feeling good.
Oh, okay. Share away. Let's hear it.
Okay, I was thinking about how anxiety can be seen as the gap between the demands of what's happening in our inner and outer world and whatever our mental fitness strategies are to meet those demands.
Huh. The demands to meet our inner and outer world.
The demands from our inner and outer world
Okay.
is going to be either met or not met by our strategies for self-care, mental fitness, right?
Right.
And anxiety is the gap between those demands and our strategies.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
just see anxiety as a lot of cognitive distortions and a lot of undue pressure that we put on ourselves, right? But I like the way you're saying it. I like this spin you're taking on.
right, well, the spin I'm taking on it is that if we don't have a strategy for dealing with cognitive distortions, we're going to feel more anxious. Or if our overall
Okay.
strategy is to escape it with alcohol or weed or gambling or porn or compulsive
Gaming.
shopping or whatever,
Yeah.
it's it's not actually going to meet the demands that our life is bringing us, right? We're going to be anxious, right? To
Right.
the degree that our coping strategies don't like rise to the occasion to deal with whatever's coming up, we're going to feel it. And mental fitness takes work.
Yeah.
And cognitive restructuring, right? Like thinking about the patterns in our mind and in our behaviors that we don't like, and actually like setting aside some time to like write those down and brainstorm some corrective thoughts or behaviors that we want to try, right? So
Yeah.
cognitive reframing, or I guess behavioral reframing,
Right.
maybe, um, is something that we don't typically do. We don't spend that much time on mental fitness.
Right. Well, I think it's because people feel so beaten down and they get exhausted and they're just kind of on auto mode. It's just happening. Life is happening to them. They're not really in charge of things, you know? I think oftentimes people just play out the same patterns, the same routines,
Yeah.
have the exact same thought processes about everything, and just end up feeling anxious because they're just replaying the same wiring over and over again. It's a very conscious thing you have to do to like become a less anxious person. I think it does take a lot of effort. Like it's exhausting sometimes because you got to bring awareness. It's very present centered, you know, and some people just don't want to do that.
Right. And that's coming from us that it's exhausting. It takes a lot of effort and commitment. But I
Right.
think for people that don't kind of swim in this stuff every day with their work like we do,
Right.
I think a whole second factor is not even knowing what do I need to do for myself if
Right.
I was going to actually be intentional about being less anxious.
Yeah.
Like even things like, thinking about your morning routine and what would be ideal in terms of having a routine that kind of fuels your tank and makes you feel good and centered and relaxed. Your evening routine, right? Like those kinds of things take some awareness that like that actually matters. And we don't just come into the world like sort of knowing that as a like thing, right? And it's not
Like something that
like,
has to happen. That's good for you. Right.
yeah, it's not modeled that well in our society. There aren't structural reinforcements. Like, screens are a reinforcement of like stealing our attention and focus and keeping us from having deliberate goals and strategies and plans for our life, let alone for our, mental fitness goals. But I do think a good first step, and I know I've said this before, I'll say it again, is that mental fitness is parallel to physical fitness. What people tend to think of in terms of what's required for physical fitness, there's a parallel amount of time and energy and understanding
And
that
effort.
needs to happen
Yeah.
to be able to be mentally fit. And mentally fit would mean that we're managing our anxiety pretty well, right? That's one way to see it.
Yeah. As we're talking about anxiety, I'm thinking about my clients and a lot of my clients that are struggling with anxiety. There's like situational anxiety, like I can't find a job, stuff like that. And then there's ongoing persistent anxiety. And I've noticed that clients that are stuck in ongoing persistent anxiety, there's like a level of like a lack of understanding of like who they fundamentally are, what they're doing in the world, like why they're doing the things they're doing. Like I'm not sure that they're acting out their values. Did
Right.
you notice this?
I think that happens all the time. When you say like people are feeling overwhelmed
Mm,
and they're just kind of getting by day to day, I'm I'm with you, but to me the next step is how do we recognize that those feelings of overwhelmed life experience or anxiety or just, kind of like fatigue, depression are managed better, right? Like we can actually make progress on this. We can grow some skills for working with it as an alternative to just wallowing in it.
well, I agree with that, but I mean, like I'm just thinking about clients that are, I don't know, like they're not following their what they feel like. I don't think they know who they are sometimes, and they're just going with what they think they need to do. And I think there's a level of incongruence between who they are and what they're doing in life, right? And what like why are they doing what they're doing? A lot of people have that why and they don't have an answer to it.
Right. Well, I think there's not a kind of intentional purposefulness on a daily level or just in a kind of like a deeper level of like, what is my purpose in life? What am I all
Yeah.
about? A lot of
Right?
it is just sort of like path of least resistance, pleasure principle energy, and then
Right.
a list of like things that we feel like we have to do, whether it's
Right.
like chore-like details or school or find a job or deal with commitments that we feel like other people expect from us.
Yeah. Exactly. And so like I call it the silent observer. There's a part of our psyche that's observing everything that we're doing. And I think it's the most like authentic version of ourselves. The part that actually I don't think it is connected to the rest of us. It's just kind of in the background. We have to like evoke it to understand it. But I don't think it's happy with the day-to-day grind when you don't know why you're doing what you're doing and you don't know why you're anxious and you're just using escapist behavior, pleasure-seeking behaviors to overcome this incongruence. I think that that's one of the leading reasons for anxiety in society.
I'm with you, and if we sort of like I don't know, kind of separate out that part of us that's like the witness in our mind that's kind of watching what we're doing.
Right.
I feel like one of the challenges with intentionally evoking that or getting into that state of mind is that very quickly this other state of mind, our like self-condemning, judgmental
Right.
state or voice,
She's like, you're not good
quickly
enough. You
comes
can't do
in
it.
and
Yeah.
is like, oh, this is what I see you doing. You're a turd. Why are
Yeah.
you doing this? You're lame, weak,
Hmm.
ineffective, never going to amount to anything. Whatever our negative self-talk is, quickly follows from the observations. So to be like a gentle observer where we're trying to bring some awareness as well as like self-care and acceptance, right? It's awareness so that we can hopefully uncover or be more intentional about the things that we think we could be doing with our day-to-day choices in our time to be able to feel better and feel okay. But somehow that awareness brings more like pain of like, I don't feel okay and I'm a piece of shit
Right.
or something like that.
Well, it's because you're focusing on it, that feeling. But I think you tapped into something when you said, I think it starts with compassion, like self-compassion. All too often we fall into a negative spiral of thinking because we feel that silent observer part of us is like, dude, you don't know what you're doing. You're kind of being an idiot. You could have said this better. You could have done this better. Why did you do that? How come you didn't go exercise today? Whatever it is. There's this lack of compassion. It's like you're fighting for your place on this planet. You're
Yeah.
fighting for your worth. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're trying to fit a script or an image that is expected of them from society, but they haven't done the introspection to figure out who they are and what they want out of society. And so self-care is huge for this. And self-care would really look like compassion. Like the
So
starting
how do we
stage is
access
awareness and
compassion if our like repetitive thinking is like, I hate myself,
yeah.
I'm worthless. How do
Yeah.
we flip that script? How do we access
Well, I think it
self?
starts with noticing that there's different parts to yourself, right? Like there is a part of you that feels this way. Typically, that part of you that's saying that kind of stuff, it's a part of you that's from the past. It's an arrested development. Like one of these virtues haven't been met from a long time ago and it's still acting out. So noticing that there's a part of you more than likely younger, right? More than likely not something outside of you, just something you've manifested from what you've learned over life and what you've observed, and having compassion for that part of you and realizing there's so many distortions in that spot, right? There's so many cognitive distortions. And here's an example of a cognitive distortion that a lot of people use and they don't even realize it. It's the should.
Hmm.
I should have done this. I should be doing this. Those are actually cognitive distortions. And I'll tell you why. Not every time is a should an actual thing that you should be doing, right?
Yeah.
If I'm exhausted, should I really go to the gym? If if I'm really sad, should I really be like forcing myself to be social, right? Or is there something else I need in those moments?
Yeah. Oh, the should voice is like a endless nag that's never satisfied and, always like lacking compassion.
Well, it's childlike. If you really tap into that, if you really understand where the shoulds come from, it's a very stubborn version of us. That does not, it's very black and white, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you feel into that version of yourself, and I do this with clients all the time, I use Gestalt and parts work. Once they get into this mode of shoulds, once you tap into that, they feel young because that is a younger version of them, right?
Right. Well, you know what they say about shooting on yourself in Gestalt?
Yeah.
They say shooting on yourself is like shitting on yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I got to use the sound.
There we go. 2 out of 5. I
Two
just
out of
wanted to
five
get you back.
stars.
I just wanted to, but
Wow.
no,
Wow.
no, that was pretty good. You know
I
what?
thought I
4 out of 5.
laced it in there pretty well. I would have given
You
myself a three.
did. You did. Well, that's what they say. You're shitting all over yourself, really, as if you're shitting on yourself. Just know shoulds are usually coming from a very stubborn part of you that isn't based necessarily in reality or going to fit the circumstances that you're actually in right now. Right?
Yeah.
Like, Like I should hit the gym 5 days a week. Well, if I hit the gym 1 day a week right now, is that really a should that I can live up to?
Yeah.
It's
So
just,
to to get back into like the work that this takes,
right,
I feel like part of the work is doing some exploration about what are some self-affirming thoughts that we can have or reminders that we can have, and to have like brainstormed them, written them down at some point so that they're accessible and we're not starting from square one every time being like, I'm being self-aggressive. Like, I don't know what to do. We practice self-aggression all the time.
I
And
know.
that part of our brain has a ready list that it can just kind of access with like the same old things that it knows are going to land and be potent.
Right,
We can access compassion for people that we care about, our friends and family, right? If they're going through something, we can, like, our brain in a different part of our brain, right? A different part of ourselves will be able to like really believe and be caring and be sincere. But that applied to ourself is hard to come by. And it's important, I think, to slow down, create some deliberate time and space to do this self-care work of learning what thoughts, what like self-affirmations are going to feel like we're doing some, good, compassionate self-care
yeah,
work, and
right.
to have those like dialed in because the other stuff already is wired in. So if we don't have access to that when we're in a frustrated place,
We need to have that.
yeah,
Yeah. And to go off the point of like we can be compassionate towards other people. The reason why it's harder to be compassionate towards yourself is because there's usually a part of you that you've been rejecting for years. There's a part of you that you have a lot of judgment towards, and that part of you is the part that you're that's coming out in these black and white thinking patterns, and you're just going into it saying, I hate you, I don't like you, why is this happening? When you have a relationship with someone outside of yourself and you can access compassion, it's not as hard because you're seeing the person as a whole being and you have a rapport with them, right? Like you have a relationship with that person outside of you.
yeah.
So it makes it easier to access compassion. It's actually much harder to access compassion inwards from what I've seen and from my own experience, and probably a lot of listeners, all five of the listeners we have probably agree.
We had 6 listeners to
That
our
was close.
podcast last week just on the Spotify, um, I don't know, channel or podcast site. So that doesn't count our Google Play or our YouTube channel.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well, good. I hope it's helping. But I think one thing I'd really like listeners to hear is like that part of us that we're judging. It's a younger part of us. It's very black and white. You need to learn how to figure out the like narrative coming from that part of you. And you need to see that part of you as almost childlike. And what do you need? You need to learn how to talk to that part of you.
right. And access, they say we want to access like the wise parent voice in
Yeah,
ourselves, right? And
right.
do our own self-parenting that way.
Yeah. If we see a child outside of us saying these things, we're not going to talk to them the way we talk to ourselves.
Right. Right. We would immediately catch ourselves and stop if we started to go there. We'd be like, "Oh, this is not kind. This is not how I want to help this person." But we kind of pile on ourselves with this relentless energy.
Yeah. Yeah, we're really mean to ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
Um, okay, I know we gotta wrap this one in a minute or two here, but
okay.
um, I do, in the next podcast we'll get more personal in how we're working with this stuff. But I do just want to emphasize that I feel like there's a commitment to mental fitness the same way there's a commitment to physical fitness, right? We've got to really dig deep and get clear that we want to grow our capacity to manage anxiety, to manage our mood stuff, and to have some skills that we build through practice. And then we got to learn and understand what type of practice is actually going to help build that stuff.
Absolutely.
And some of that thing might be, just learning how our mind works, developing those like morning and evening routines, um, getting some cognitive restructuring mapped out so that we know the self-corrective thoughts that we want to be getting to when we get down on ourselves, because we get down on ourselves in very patterned ways. Um,
Absolutely. It's important to notice that. The awareness is key.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got more to say on this, but I guess we can wait until next time. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one?
Not really. You kind of nailed it.
I I so nailed it. I so nailed it. Yes. I'll give myself some applause.
There
All
we
right.
go.
Talk to you guys in a few. Thanks for listening.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress.